OpTic Gaming, fan favorite. I'm sure one that you guys are very interested in my take on, as this squad had a lot of favor going all the way through the Pro League up until they weren't able to win a map at Miami. So were these individual role changes really what's needed? Will they keep going for that? Or will they start to worry about maybe just preparing for other teams? That considered and more in this episode of 32 on 32. COD fans, what up? Welcome back. Good to see you. IHOLDSHIFT. We're in the pocket. We're not losing our chair spot right now, so don't worry about me readjusting all over the place. We've got OpTic Gaming to talk about, and again, this team has been coming under a lot of constructive criticism. We'll say constructive criticism when it comes down to their mentality of individually working on just changing weapons, changing roles, seeing who is best at what, and obviously coming under fire when it comes down to, was this really the appropriate time to do that? After a top 8 finish at Miami, again, solely due to the fact that, again, they were in the winner's bracket to start as the number 1 seed, and then not winning a map, really not even coming close to winning a map, to be completely candid. It goes to show that, was this indeed the changes that were needed? I will just preface this whole video with my sentiment that I get where you're coming from, because you've been so close, but yet so far when it comes to winning championships, 2 third places in a row. You have to be thinking, is it just, do we need to be working on something ourselves? Are we hitting our highest potential ceiling with what we're running currently? Or do we need to make changes to make sure that we do have the highest ceiling available to us? And obviously they thought the latter. So it is what it is when it comes down to it. Let's take a look at this pool, because this is an interesting pool. I think, just generally speaking, as you look at Pool G, OpTic Gaming coming in as the number 1 seed, but Evil Geniuses are showing that they've been making a lot of strides and becoming a lot better. And then you've got Carnage Gaming, a squad that was a very big surprise, I think, as far as where they finished from this time at CWO Miami in the open bracket. And then Train Hard, which again, I think is a very interesting squad due to how much pro experience they have, and really they're kind of like the collective of, outside of mostly English and UK players, this is probably the most powerful EU squad as a whole. I think it's outside of, excluding England and the United Kingdom. So taking a look at this team in specific, again, let's just go backwards. Again, they won Vegas, started things off super hot with that undefeated streak throughout all of the online stuff that was happening, the pro downs, the 2Ks, all those things that they were playing in. Getting through Vegas, looking good post-Vegas. Then they get into the CWL where they have to play with Zuma. Not the best opening weeks. It leads to a lot of unfamiliarity with what it looked like. Again, they weren't really being able to grow as fast as other teams, so they only finished top 12 at Fort Worth. They bounce back. They finish 3rd at London, 3rd at Anaheim, and then they don't win a map at Miami after they make all these role swaps. And I just kind of want to compare and contrast just the stat lines from before Miami, and really I'd say just from Anaheim on, or before Anaheim and before that, it's versus Anaheim on. So you take a look, just generally speaking, at some of these statistics that are at the bottom of your screen. 42 and 28 in the hard point. They were 9 and 4 during their time at Anaheim. They were 5 and 5 at London, 4 and 4 at Fort Worth. Again, just they started to get better come Anaheim. That was the best that we've ever seen them play in the hard point, and leading up to that in the divisional, they'd only dropped 2 hard points there. Then after Anaheim, they go 3 for 4 in the cross divisional, and they lose their 2 on the back end. And again, during their time at Miami, it was a 132 average for them and a 250 against. They played 2 hard points. It was a 99 to 250 versus Luminosity and a 166 to 250 versus 100 Thieves. You battle up against that. Their Search and Destroy, not looking great during the cross divisional. Not looking great at Miami. They average a 2.5 average rounds per the 2 maps that they had. 2.5 to 6 is what they had. In total, the roster as a whole is still positive in Search and Destroy, sitting at a nice and healthy 33 and 26. And you see the averages there are 4.764, 4.25 against. And then you go to the Control. Again, during their time at Anaheim, 5 and 2. Cross divisional, 2 and 2. Miami, 0 and 2. It's just, it makes it, I think it's the biggest thing that I can say about this team is it's frustrating. You get your hopes up. You have some of the best tournaments that you guys have ever performed at when it came to Anaheim across every single map and mode that looked the best that they had in a long time. A couple things go wrong versus their set in 100 Thieves. A couple things go wrong in the set versus Gen G. But again, both of those series they lost were very close games. You felt like they were right there. And then you make these swaps. They have to go Game 5 versus Heretics just to survive. They have to go Game 5 versus Elevate just to survive. And then you get 0-3'd versus Envy. And 0-3'd, or 1-3'd rather, versus E United. And I get that a lot of people are saying, well, they're playing with different specialists. They're playing with different maps. We touched on this a lot during the breakdown videos and the recap videos, that that's not 100% true. They're playing on maps that they're still pretty well rehearsed on and still are getting beat pretty convincingly on. Again, versus E United, they only won a single round in Payload Search and Destroy, which is their best Search and Destroy map. They're 9-3 on the map. They're most rehearsed in frequency, but they're still holding one of the top win-loss ratios in Payload Search and Destroy as a team in the CWL period. So those conversations, those arguments aren't really all that valid. So when you come down to this squad, we're apparently sticking with still making changes. My biggest worry for this team is the fact that they're spending so much time worried about themselves that they're going to be behind the ball when it comes to preparing for other teams. And you take a look at this pool, again, Evil Geniuses in your pool, that's a team that comes in prepared. And yes, they're still dealing with some individual issues, but I would say that Revan has really proved himself as being one of the more prepared coaches when it comes down to the CWL. And he's going to be looking to gun at OpTic, knowing that they're vulnerable and that they very well could find a little bit of favor. Now, I'll switch the coin back to OpTic Gaming. They have always done just historically very well versus Evil Geniuses. They're 4-0 versus them, 12-1 in the maps, which is very, very impressive. But again, the last time they played them was at the pools at Anaheim when they were looking their strongest. So it's very difficult to make a full assessment of this squad as far as, A, are they going to get out of this pool? I don't think that you can convincingly say yes. Now, granted, they are playing up against a Carnage Gaming team that's still figuring themselves out and a Train Hard esport team that I think has a lot of potential power for them, but they're also still not getting very great practice right now. So I think as far as overall rehearsal goes, OpTic has the better, the leg up in this pool because they're going to have the best practice coming forward. It just comes down to, are they only having to worry about themselves and get better about, them individually, or can they actually sit down and prepare for a squad like Evil Geniuses, Carnage, and Train Hard? I'm hoping that they can, because this has been quite the fall from grace for OpTic, but I think that it'd be very unrealistic looking at just how the last handful of weeks have went statistically for OpTic and say that they are for sure a title contender. I think it'd be a very difficult stretch to make that argument. Even when you look at against their head-to-head versus some of the teams that are up there, they are historically not great versus Gen G, 1-3 versus them. They're not historically great versus E United. It's a split 2-2, 7-7 in maps, but it's a 1-4 versus 100 Thieves, only winning 5 maps to the 13 of them. And even versus Luminosity, they're 1-2 against them. So I think it's very difficult to make the argument that this team is a favorite or has high possibilities of winning a championship. It can be done, and I think that, again, it just comes down to, are they going to be able to figure themselves out individually? The other thing that I want to throw into the mix, and this is going to sound like a negative, but actually I think it's actually a pretty big positive for them, is the fact that people are scared to play them on Arsenal. They're 6-2 in the hardpoint there, and they were very, very good at frequency hardpoint during their time at Anaheim, to the point where nobody wanted to play them there. So you're able to, again, flex onto maps like Hacienda where they're strong, Seaside where they're strong, Gridlock where they split 50-50. You just need to be able to work on your individual mistakes, and then if you can find out that individual cohesiveness with one another and get that weapon or specialist combination for each individual good to go, then they'll start to be able to develop and find more of a preparation time where they can be comfortable with themselves, prepare for the bracket, prepare for their opponents during the bracket, and come out looking strong. For me, it just comes down to, if they don't have the preparation on themselves down, it's going to be very difficult for them to make a run. Even in their Search and Destroy, again, their Search and Destroy, they're pretty well rehearsed just about everywhere but Gridlock. And kind of the same storyline for Control with the exception of Seaside. So there is potential for this squad to do very, very well. It's just hard for me to objectively make the argument that this is a title contender. I know that a lot of you OpTic fans are not going to be liking hearing that, but the results, I think, kind of speak for themselves. And again, to make those changes in roles and specialists so late in the season, it provides a more dynamic learning curve to where it's going to be a lot harder of a mountain to climb for them. Again, you take a look at Dashy. Again, he was the boy wonder coming through. A very impressive performance at Vegas where he really stole the show. He's still doing very well as kind of that dedicated Maddox player, sitting at a 1.14 rating overall and a 1.20 KD overall. Again, that's mostly with his time when he was playing on the Maddox and the Tempest in specific. So a lot of things to consider, I think, if you're an OpTic fan. This is not a free pool, though. I think that Evil Geniuses has the potential to top this pool. pool. If they obviously beat OpTic, they should be okay, I think, to obviously be able to do that. And I think that even Trainhard and Carnage could put up a fight versus this team. Again, a little bit more of a stretch because those two teams in specific, when you look at kind of middle of the road open teams, they have a lot of individual work to also do on themselves. But I think that's going to make them kind of an X factor and a surprise factor when it comes to playing OpTic and Evil Geniuses, who aren't going to have the ability to prepare as much. So a lot of things to consider. I still have OpTic getting out of this pool as you look back at it. They should beat Trainhard. They should beat Carnage. I think it's going to be down versus them and Evil Geniuses as far as who's able to get out of the pool as the #1 seed, but I still see them getting out of the pool. It just comes down to, I think, how far can their run really go after that, because that's where my confidence really starts to shake when you're looking at head-to-heads versus other top 6 teams that are in the game. So ceiling is, I won't say nearly as high, but the floor is definitely a little bit more breathable, I think, for them, more approachable as a total when it comes down to this pool. It just comes down to how much individual work were they able to get. That's kind of how my take goes. So we'll see what happens. And again, I'll be giving more of a hot take as far as these guys go when I actually get the chance to see them play. So make sure if you're not already subscribed, you're going to want to check out in all those World Championship recap videos. And beyond that, we have more individual teams to go over. So hit that notification bell to know when my videos do pop up. Until the next one, hope you guys all keep holding it down. Later, bye-bye.